Hi, I'm Dr. Donald Boomgaarden, President of St. Joseph's University, New York, and I'd like to welcome you to Living Our Mission. Built on tradition and founded by the Sisters of St. Joseph more than 100 years ago, we are a mission-driven institution that provides a strong academic, value-oriented education with growing, diverse campuses located in Patchogue and Brooklyn, New York, as well as online. Thank you for joining us. In this program, we will be discussing our strategic plan, a set of goals that we plan for ourselves as an institution to ensure that we are always evolving and growing to meet the needs of our students. Strategic plan task forces are created to formulate strategies around each of our goals. And joining me today are two members of that task force, Dr. Heather Berry, Interim Provost and Vice President for Academic Affairs, and Dr. Constantine Rountos, Associate Professor of Biology. I'd like to welcome both of you today. So happy to be able to talk to you about a new strategic plan. We're just completing our last strategic plan, which I think was very successful and actually was called Living Our Mission and related very much to the work that we do for CFN. And so we're about to engage in another round of conversations about the future of St. Joseph's. And this is a particularly special discussion because we're now St. Joseph's University. The last time we did this, we were St. Joseph's College. And I know a lot of our viewers are wondering, well, what's the difference? What are some of the new approaches and new goals that the institution may have in the coming years? And so it's apropos to talk a little bit about the strategic planning process in general. So Heather, you were with us for our last strategic plan go-around. And of course, you're a longtime faculty member here at St. Joseph's, and your discipline is history. And so you already have a historical mind. And so when you look back and you think about the last time we did the planning and this time, how do you think we should be approaching and thinking about the development of our strategic plan?
Oh, it's a great question. I'm glad you bring up our last plan because our last plan was very successful and it really brought us to where we are today and as a university. And as you said, this is an exciting time because this is our first strategic plan as a university. So part of the process, we need to be very inclusive, we need to be transparent, and we need to have a lot of conversations. It's exciting because we can unite together as a community, but we have to bring in everyone from the community in terms of our faculty, our staff, administrators, and most importantly, our students. And so these task forces, as you had indicated, really help us do that, but we also reached out to all the faculty on both campuses. We have graduate faculty as well and undergraduate, and then of course our students. Our students are key. We reached out to them a little bit differently. We didn't ask them for strategies because that might be a little odd for a student to think about that in that process, but we asked, what do you love about St. Joseph's? Where do you see us in the future? What do you want to see in the next 3 years? And so all the feedback from the community has been brought to the task forces, and then they are working on creating strategies that can achieve our goals.
You know, Heather, when we talk about this, for a lot of the viewers, they'd be surprised to learn that when we develop a strategic plan, it's actually a conversation. In other words, the Board of Trustees does not lay a plan down upon us and ask us to execute it, but it's really quite the opposite. You know, we come up with the plan, which is eventually approved by the board, and they certainly have a lot of input in it, but the idea is that the development of the plan is a conversation. And I think I've been involved in many strategic planning processes, and each time I've seen the most successful plans are the ones where there is that conversation, that engagement between the administration and the faculty and the students, all of the stakeholders of the institution, as well as the alums, to really guarantee that you come up with the best plan possible, and also a plan that doesn't just wind up on the shelf somewhere and look like a beautiful doorstop, right? I mean, I think that's the fear that all of us have when we create a plan, is that we'll create a wonderful plan, but then no one will remember that we did it, or no one will follow it. So it's also important to remind even the group as they're doing it that this will be used for decision making. In other words, when we're laying down the goals for the institution, we will be going back to this plan. Now, Constantine, you were involved in the last plan as well. And as you think about that dialogue, you of course are coming from the sciences as a biologist, and I know that we were just talking before we started taping today, we're talking a little bit about the importance of data. So when we look at a strategic plan and your role in a strategic plan, how do you see yourself as a faculty member, particularly as a faculty member representing the sciences in this process of creating the plan?
Yeah, well, I think Heather said it really well, that it's an inclusive conversation with everyone. And really one of the joys of being a faculty member is that we are on the front lines engaging with our students in a day-to-day basis. And that allows us to kind of see not only what's going on in society, but what the major concerns for our students are. And in developing a strategic plan, right, that allows us then to sort of tailor the plan to address some other issues that we may want to bring to the table and to promote for our future. And in terms of baseline data, how does that tie into it? Well, we need to understand that an academic institution is an evolving entity. So we need to change as our shifting baselines in society and our students' needs change. So we need to constantly be adapting, and now as a university, we really have that potential to make large change in our students and in the broader society.
Absolutely, and I think that when we look at that idea of this plan for the university, we certainly have to reach perhaps a little higher than we did in previous plans, although we reached pretty high in the last plan. What would be some of the main areas that the plan would touch on as we're working on it?
Oh, many. We have 6 main goals, but definitely we're looking at what do we need to create for the students of the future. And I'm looking, of course, I always look at the academic programs. I love to look at new programs, reinvigorating current programs. And we've done, as you said, a great job doing that. But I think we need to go a little bit higher. And that's what the charge was of this task force leaders, is that let's step it up. Let's dream a little bit, and let's figure out how we can actually go further.
Constantine, as you were saying, you're in the trenches with the students, you're working with them, you know what's working and what's not working in terms of the educational endeavor, and also you have a good idea of what's on the horizon, what kinds of programs and approaches are going to be necessary for the institution. As you look at that, what are some of your feelings about the future years?
Well, in the future years, what I've seen amongst our students is that there's sort of been a recentering and focus on sustainability. And this is something that is foremost in our students' mind, whereas maybe in past generations it wasn't there wasn't as much knowledge about these issues. So our students really understand the fact that we live on a finite planet, and our role in living on this planet is not only to better ourselves, but to also better our environment and allow for our environment to heal and to sustain humanity in the future. So it's a large undertaking, but it's something that I certainly see in my students, that there's this shared responsibility, and it's something that I take into our strategic planning process. This idea of our mission extends beyond our bricks, right?
Yes, I think for me, I always think of St. Joseph's as a transformative place, but it's not only transforming our students, but also hopefully the area around our university, so that both here in Long Island and in Brooklyn, we are really reaching out into the community. We're not an ivory tower, we're not disconnected, but in fact we can be a resource. And I know our biology program has been a terrific resource in the local area in terms of helping in that area of sustainability.
Yeah, I mean, our students are involved, our faculty members are involved, and we're part of the community, and that's sort of how it should be. We integrate and train students so that they can become the best versions of themselves, not only be successful in their personal endeavors, but also be able to go into communities and help raise the state of our communities. So.
And we even have programs, I know, because we were speaking about this, where our students are working in internships, and we're also cooperating with other institutions on the island in this endeavor.
Yeah, absolutely. External grant opportunities, working with NGOs, working with governmental agencies around here, the National Park Service, for instance, or NGOs that are around, our campuses. Getting involved in the community because we're a part of the community.
Heather, as you think about this process and bringing together the campus, all the different aspects of the campus, it's kind of a creative process and not that different really from the scholarly endeavor in general, is it?
It's true, absolutely. And as you said, the faculty play a key role in bringing their creativity to the process and having conversations with each other and the administration and students and finding it. And as you said, it really has to be a conversation.
And that's a conversation which without the strategic planning process might not ever happen.
True.
In other words, it's so easy for us to fall into our areas of activity that we don't communicate anymore with one another about the larger issues of the institution. And that's kind of the sign of a great institution is where you do have those conversations, but the plan pushes us forward to do that. Well, we have to take a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more deeply about strategic plan and the strategic plan of St. Joseph's University, New York.
Ready to be, not to seem? Ready to seize opportunity, take the lead, and raise the bar? Ready to get the job done on the front line, at the front of a classroom, or in the boardroom? With campuses in Patchogue, Brooklyn, and online, St. Joseph's University, New York delivers a strong, values-oriented, and affordable education so you're ready for an exciting career and a life of authenticity and integrity. St. Joseph's University, New York. Ready, set, Joes.
Welcome back to St. Joseph's University, New York, Living Our Mission. We were discussing our strategic plan and upcoming goals. And as a part of that conversation, we also have some interesting external bodies and groups that look at St. Joseph's University and evaluate it. And these include not only our accreditors, but also even outside organizations which rank colleges and universities on the basis of quality. And I'm sure that you've probably seen some of these studies where colleges are ranked in the top 10 or top 100. And this whole process is really quite an interesting endeavor. And so we at St. Joseph's have focused a little bit on these rankings and how they are created. And Heather, I'm so happy to have you here today to also talk a little bit about college and university rankings and how St. Joseph's has approached that process. What is that like? What are some of the insights that you've gained in working with our committee on that process?
It's a great question. It's very complicated, and that's one of those things where I learned a lot about the metrics and what is used to rank universities and colleges. The one thing that I found that was key is that we had to create the best plan of reporting that is best for the university. One of the things that happened prior to your presidency is that we were two different institutions. And institutions are allowed to report separately, and that really damaged us on many levels, but especially in the rankings. But it damaged us because that's not who we are. We have faculty who teach on both campuses and online. We have students who take courses on a virtual format, in an online format from professors from both campuses. And we have staff and administrators who are all three campuses. So we were not seeing the potential that we had, that we could actually come together and become one university and be ranked as in using all our strengths. So that is the key to one of the main takeaways that I found from the rankings. And we increased tremendously. But I also want to point something else out. Ranking metrics doesn't actually take everything into consideration. We are so much more than our ranking, and I think we would be higher if we had the capability of assessing the way that we engage students in the learning process and the way that we transform students. And like what Constantine had said earlier, how we prepare them for a career, but we also plan for their lives. And so if we could tap into that metrics, I think we'd be even a lot higher than we are.
Yes, I mean all of the efforts to rank institutions have to be taken with a grain of salt. We certainly can't live or die by where we are in a particular ranking. However, we did very, very well this year. I think we went up 30 points in the U.S. News rankings, and I think part of that was our change to become a university, and part of it were the efforts that we've made to improve faculty salaries and compensation and benefits, as well as many, many other aspects of the institution that we report out to other bodies. I think that the interesting thing about this is that you're absolutely right, that how do you really measure a fine education? And maybe the best measure is taking a look at what alums do when they graduate, what happens to them. Constantine, you've had the chance to see many students go through the process here at St. Joseph's. Tell us a few stories about some of the successful students that you've taught.
Oh, I mean, I love talking about my students, and you get them all. You get students that come into the college experience expecting one thing, taking other courses, and you see them totally light up in a field that they never knew even existed. So I've had students come in that were average students, were able to find their capabilities, fine-tune that, and from that foundation that we provide here at St. Joe's, we're able to go on to grad school, graduate with their doctorate in physical therapy or their MD or other advanced graduate degrees in the disciplines that they love. And that's really an important thing. It's not just providing them with the degree or that career path that can earn them financial security, but finding truly a career that they love. Mm-hmm. And what we do is provide that solid foundation, which obviously supports the rest of their life and future generations. Because we serve many students that are first generation college students. And those success stories will have ripple effects for generations to come. So I always love all of my students, but the ones that really understand the fact that they're here to be challenged, they're here to learn, they're here to push their envelope and really become their most successful selves.
One of the important things to remember is that many times students really don't know what their gifts are. We might think we know as parents what their gifts are, but when they get to the campus of St. Joseph's, they have an opportunity, because of our liberal arts curriculum, to take a look at various areas. And they may discover that even though they thought they were supposed to become a veterinarian, maybe they really need to become a neurosurgeon, maybe they really need to become a lawyer. So there's that process of discernment that the students go through. And I think many times it's a difficult operation for the student to make that transition to the field that they really love, and that's where you come in. That's where you're able to talk to them about that.
Absolutely, and really it's experiential learning. It's showing the students what this career might be like so that they actually can use that information and make an informed decision. Mm-hmm. In the biology classroom, we have labs with the majority of our classes. So not only are students learning the theory, but they're actually hands-on trying to reinforce this information. So it's something that, as a liberal arts institution, we're able to give students a wide perspective, and that's important. Mm-hmm. We need more of that in our society.
Yeah. And I think that the students need that opportunity to find out who they are, to come into an institution where they have a faculty that is interested in who they are and may even have some insights into who they will become. And I think that's one of the things which is not going to appear on the rankings, right? So that's one of those unrankable areas. How do you rank that? But the reality is the success of our students demonstrates that we're very good at helping students discern what their careers will be. And there's a process that they go through with us which allows them to become very, very successful in a variety of areas. And I think people might be surprised to know that a school like St. Joseph's, which certainly we proclaim and we're very proud of our liberal arts tradition, we have a very strong tradition in the sciences. We have a very strong tradition in preparing students for professional careers. In fact, that's a part of our approach, right? Our mission is value-oriented education. So we want our students to come in, find themselves, and also graduate with a career, something that they can do the rest of their lives and enjoy. Now, Heather, in the work that you've done on the rankings committee, as you are preparing the data that we're reporting out, what are some of the areas that these ranking bodies are looking at? What types of things do they examine?
They examine a lot, actually. A lot goes into, as you had alluded to, faculty salaries. A lot goes into tuition, also financial aid, and also we do very well in our giving to students and scholarships, and that's actually a benefit to us when it comes to the ranking. So there's a lot involved in there. Also the number of students, the number of graduate programs, the number of undergraduate programs, but also there is evidence of success and how many of our alumni give to the university. That's actually part of the rankings, which I didn't know until I guess last year. So those are all kinds of things that are helpful, that are part of the metrics when it comes to the rankings.
And I think that for parents and students who are looking at colleges and universities, the rankings are an important tool, but they aren't the be-all and end-all because they do not measure some of the most critical aspects. And I think one of the things that is particularly admirable about St. Joe's is our retention rate, which is over 80%, and our graduation rate, which is over 70%. Very, very high in comparison to many other institutions. If you compare our graduation retention rates, the success of our alums with our tuition, you can see it's a great value proposition. But for me, the real value proposition is what we do to our students, what Constantine, what you do, and what so many of our faculty do to help transform them and help them in their journey to become who they are, so that at St. Joseph's they're really not a number, but they're really a name, they're a person. And when they graduate, they also come back to us. They either come back to us as adjunct faculty, they come back to us as graduate students, or they come back to us as terrific donors, and we have so many. I just want to thank both of you for talking about these important issues today. And I want to thank you for joining us, and thank all of you for viewing St. Joseph's Living Our Mission. This is a program that I love to do. It's a chance for me to talk about one of the greatest institutions in New York, in my humble opinion. Thank you for being with us.